You are listening to the 4th and 40 podcast presented by Dorm Room Sports.
Extra bright, I want y'all to see this. Turn up the lights in here, baby. You know what I need. Want you to see everything. Want you to see all of the lights. Fast cars, shooting stars, all of the lights, all of the lights.
Welcome back to the 4th and 40 podcast presented by Dorm Room Sports. As always, we want to thank you for tuning in every week, and we ask that you have not already, please go ahead and give us a follow on TikTok and Twitter at 4th and 40 Pod. We also ask that you please go ahead and subscribe on your preferred listening platform, and please give us a review as well if that is an option. Something that we have been doing for the last few episodes and will be continuing to do is the listener questions. If you have something that you would like to hear or a question you would like to ask, go ahead and shoot us an email. The email will be listed in the description below, and that's all we got for announcements right now, I think. But now let's get on with the show. We're going to start off with 4 downs, which I'm going to go ahead and let Jake go first this week on 4 downs.
All right, so for my 4 downs topic, I wanted to briefly talk about Antonio Brown, somebody that was seemingly in the headlines every other day about a year ago this time, and has seemed to have quieted down, believe it or not, if that's possible. You had seen a few videos of him working out with quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson even came out and talked about him, that he's been working tirelessly on his game and his personal life, and there seemed to be a bit of hype building up about him being back in the league, pending a potential suspension. Obviously, that is still to be debated and seen what happens. He even reached out to Deion Sanders, who said that Deion Sanders said he would be doing anything that's possible to get Antonio Brown back in the league. And then that all happened. And then we see about 2 days ago a trucker's dash cam down in Florida for a moving company. Antonio Brown getting a verbal altercation that later turned physical with this truck driver. And it just kind of blows my mind. The guy has all the talent in the world and decides he wants to do stuff like this. I can't see a reality where we ever see him back in the league. I'm not saying this event is the thing that pushed him over the edge, but if I'm an NFL GM that was looking at potentially signing Antonio Brown, hearing something like this come out just makes me think, you know what, forget it. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you would think that if you're with the pass he had, if you're trying to get back in the league, just what he would be doing is not what he's doing right now. He's just been he's a head case. He's a mental head case. He's a lunatic. I mean, dude's a lunatic. After stuff like this, I don't think anyone's going to sign him. Go ahead, Dave.
So for my 4 downs topic this week, I'd like to talk a little about Everson Griffin. He's a very interesting free agent right now, I think, just because he has all the talent in the world, sort of just not like Antonio Brown, but he has a lot of talent, and he's on the wire still, and he hasn't been picked up yet. And I'm just kind of curious as to why. Obviously, me and Rugg were talking about it beforehand. Apparently, he's had some personal problems he's dealt with, some mental health problems. But he's definitely a highly coveted free agent. Apparently, he's talking to a few teams. I know my Cowboys are one of them. I would be very interested in bringing him in just because of the talent he brings to the roster and what he'd be able to do to help us out. And I think he'd be, even if you don't think he's a starter this day and age, he's more than certainly a rotational player who's going to give you very high production. He has 74.5 career sacks. He's a great pass rusher. He's great in the run game. And I think whoever picks him up is going to get a decent value from him just because he hasn't been signed yet.
He
So,
wrecked
that's
that
it for that.
Saints game with Danielle Hunter. And when you have a pass rusher who can do that, that's very valuable.
Go ahead, Mark. You can go ahead and actually no, Rugg. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rugg. No, let Rugg go.
I'll go ahead. Yeah. So my 4 downs topic's about Marquise Hollywood Brown. He had a really nice rookie season, really explosive. Not too great after the catch, but the great thing about him is he finished strong with 5 catches and 109 yards against the Titans. Probably one of the few Ravens who came to play football that day. But the exciting thing about Marquise Brown is, while he had a good rookie season, he played the whole season with screws in his foot. He was coming off, of course, Lisfranc surgery. It was a nasty foot injury that NFL players deal with. And it limits guys the year after the surgery. So I'm hoping that Marquise Brown, with the screws in his foot out, he's been working extra hard in the offseason. A little too much with his cousin for my liking, but it is what it is. Hopefully he keeps his head on straight, but I think he has the potential to be one of the great breakout receivers in the NFL this season. As Lamar Jackson continues to improve as a passer, especially outside the numbers, I think Marquise Brown could have a fantastic season.
Let's just hope Antonio Brown isn't preaching on how to act off the field to him on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, let's hope not. That Deion Sanders interview didn't do AB any good, clearly. But, I mean, look, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So Antonio Brown will probably tell us how changed he is again in a month, and he'll go yell at another truck driver or get arrested or do something stupid a month later. So it is what
Hopefully
it is.
he does it in Seattle, too. Be bittersweet. It'd be awesome if he just tore that locker room to shreds. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit of exciting news that we've heard in the news recently, with 31 teams allowing training facilities to be reopened for coaches and staff. And I'm just a little excited. I want to know if OTAs are a possibility of happening, what's going to go on with training camps. I know they briefly talked about how they're not going to allow fans at training camps, but I just think it's a good sign of things getting back to normal.
Yeah, and that being said, I think allowing people back in the training camps and everyone getting back, I think it's kind of happened a little bit faster than what everyone expected. I mean, it's all came really fast. I mean, it wasn't like talked about 3 weeks ago. It kind of just happened and ended up going through. But we want to go ahead and transition to that into something that was in the news and has been it's very optimistic by Texas, but Texas is saying that all stadiums will be allowed to have a 50% capacity. And that kind of brings up the question of what's going to happen across the league in the NFL, not necessarily college because that's a state, but we're going to talk more about the NFL and how the stadium capacity really could be affected and what we think is going to happen.
I mean, I listened to an interview with Mark Cuban the other day, and obviously this is not football, but he was speaking on behalf of all like majority sports owners. He's on some task force that was put together by the government with important personnel from each sports league, and he talked about this would be this one of the opening stages, allowing stadiums at 25 to 50% capacity. Obviously, his stadium's in Texas, so he was pretty spot on by that. And then slowly throughout the season, as the season goes on, allowing more and more people into the stadium. I think it's a pretty cool idea. He even spoke to the extent of having, and I don't know how this would work. It was very brief in the interview, of having team sponsored like buses or somebody pick up people that were sitting in similar sections to take them to the event to try to stop the spread of Corona or whatever. And he kind of mentioned that like half-heartedly, but I thought it was a cool little quote that he said that I would like to hear them talk about more because it's just something different, something to talk about. But it's interesting. It shows the economic power of sports. The Ohio State athletic director said that over half the school's revenue comes from the football program, and like without people in attendance, without people there, like they can't financially make it. So it shows how powerful sports are and the money that's involved in it.
Well, more than anything else, I think it just shows the mindset of the country as a whole. I think people are tired of being cooped up in their houses and they're ready to get back to normalcy. So I think by the time football season comes back around, I think we're going to be at 100% capacity for stadiums.
That is very optimistic. I don't think
that is extremely.
I
think that's a little crazy.
It's optimistic, but I believe people are fed up with it. And whether you agree with it or not, like just seeing all the tens of thousands of people protesting, whether you agree with it or not, and they're all together, a lot of people aren't.
Now that's a valid point. It's going to be very hard to tell people to stay. You can't go to a football game after all the people gathered in the streets in the last week. That is a valid point. But the problem with football in the fall is the concern of a second wave and the concern that there's on a state by state basis how different the conditions are. So one of the coolest things about this that's going to occur is how our point spread is going to be impacted. So usually when you have a team that's at home, that's considered a 2.5 point boost for being the home team. But without fans in the stadium, what do you guys think that'd be? Maybe 1.5? And then if there is some fans in like maybe Texas, for example, there's 50% capacity. Would that be like a 2-point boost? I mean, how's that going to impact home field advantage in different stadiums throughout the country, you guys think?
Yeah. And I think I asked a shitty opening question, but really what I want to know is, do you guys think it's possible for Texas to have 50% fans and then DC or Maryland, because Redskins play in Maryland. Do you think it's possible for them to only be able to allow to have 25% in the stadium? Do you think it's state by state, or do you think this is going to be you're going to see an NFL rule?
It's definitely going to be state by state, but I don't know. Everyone seems to be leaning towards the mindset of we don't care, we're over it. Everyone can take your own risk, and it's up to you whether or not you want to risk your health by going out and being in public like that.
Well, Zach asked a good question because the NFL, when you're splitting TV revenue amongst 32 teams, if one team gets to have fans in the stadium and the revenues start to become uneven, the NFL might not want that because they know some teams are going to be upset by that. Because if there's not going to be any fans in the stands, the players, everyone's going to have to take a pay cut. So how are you going to split that pay cut up? And the NFL might not want to split it up unevenly. They might just say, you know what, we're not going to have fans. Or like, because the head of the Players Association came out a couple weeks ago, he said, right now we're planning to have full capacity. And it's possible the NFL is going to say, unless states limit it specifically, we're going to plan to have full capacity in our stadiums.
Yeah, and everything comes back to money with this. I mean, Dan Snyder's going to want to have as many people in the stadium as possible because he's a greedy little bastard. He's not going to care about the health of people. So if he said if he's told he's allowed to have as many as possible, he's going to. And I think all the owners will do that. It's just a question of whether the NFL wants to assume that liability, because now we're talking about if someone goes to a game and 80 people get infected, does this come back on the NFL's decision, or is there going to be something in the ticket that says, "Oh, you're going, you're assuming your risk"?
Yeah, it's going to be exactly like that. It's going to be going by your own risk. If you decide to go to a stadium filled with 70,000 people, there's a higher probability chance that you're going to get coronavirus, obviously. So I think it's going to be something like that where you either have to sign a waiver when you purchase the tickets or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
I think all solid points. I also think it's interesting to think, say, and this is not me speaking from something I read, this is just like pure speculation. Say California says, all right, we're only going to allow 25% capacity, but these California teams that had already spoken to stadiums in their states when originally California wasn't going to allow in-person sporting events, be like, if Florida goes, hey, for 49ers, for example, hey, you want to come play in like one of the stadiums down here, more ticket sales, more whatever. Just people go to see an NFL team, like regardless of where they play. Is that something we see a possibility of? I don't necessarily think so, but it's an interesting like thought process to bring up.
I definitely think
that's a really interesting point
because the owners are just in it for the money.
Absolutely.
If San Francisco can go play in the University of Florida Stadium, just say for an example, they're going to take the money, whether or not if they can get 100% capacity in the University of Florida Stadium and they give, say, 10% of the profit to the university for letting them play there, they're absolutely going to do that.
I think that'd be a really interesting scenario to see play out. Like 49ers playing in Florida for all their home games. Like it would just be wild to me. And how does that affect team schedule, travel schedule? Like it's just, it would be wild personally.
The other question I really have is, are you guys comfortable? I know Mark is going to be big bad about this and I don't give a fuck about coronavirus, but are you guys comfortable going and sitting next to a random person in a stadium right now? Would you be comfortable with that?
Well, I already purchased I purchased my week one.
I work at a grocery store,
Philadelphia at Washington, so I'm going.
I'd be comfortable with it if I'm not going to see my older relatives at all. But I'm very nervous for my older relatives.
I'm currently working at a grocery store, and just to say that, I mean, like, it hasn't been something that's, like, on my mind recently, just because I've already been around so many people, and going to I barely want to work at the grocery store, so if I'm willing to do that and make money, then I guess I'll go to a football game and sit next to random people.
And personally, I don't have a problem with it either. I'm just... I do, like Rugg said, I'm worried about my grandparents. I'm worried about who I infect because I know I'll be fine. I know I'll be okay, and I know we will all be okay. But like, it's after these protests and stuff, it's gonna the rate's gonna come back. In the fall, it's gonna come. I think it's gonna come back. I think we're gonna see a spike, and that's nerve wracking kind of to me. I don't know.
Well, like I said earlier, people are just over it, and I think it shouldn't be up to the states whether or not they can withhold to up to 25% capacity. It should be your own decision whether or not you want to take the risk or not.
So is that liability on the person or the NFL organization?
No, absolutely. It's on the person because you're making the conscious choice to go and have a higher chance of being infected, to go have a good time,
Yeah,
go
but
watch your favorite team,
it's
whatever.
on the person until you file a lawsuit and you had to hire a good
Lawsuit,
lawyer. The
exactly.
NFL has liability
Exactly.
issues.
Well,
So in theory, you're right.
Exactly.
that's why I said have everyone that
You're right. If
purchases
they sign a
tickets sign a
waiver,
waiver.
that is an interesting thing to think about. But it's just this is so unprecedented that it's going to be hard to figure out what direction teams are going to go in. And I think because it's going to vary by franchise so much, I think you're going to see something like Zach said, where the NFL is going to have to come out, and kind of come up with a uniform policy.
Mm-hmm. And like Mark, you already bought your ticket. You didn't sign a waiver. Now the NFL has to go track you down to send you a waiver, and that ticket could now be sold on StubHub or whatever the fuck it's sold on. And now they're like the whole thing is. I don't know if
It's
they
already
can
in
get
motion.
everyone to
The
sign a waiver.
resale markets
Yeah,
have already gobbled up tickets.
Maybe
yeah.
it could be something
Yeah,
where you have to
that's
sign a
it.
waiver
Yeah,
to enter the
maybe.
stadium.
That would be where they have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's where they would. All right. Now moving on, we want to go ahead and talk about the next division that was voted on by the people on Twitter. We posted a poll saying what conference or what division did you want to hear spoke about or talked about this week, and we came up, or the people chose the AFC North. So we are going to go ahead and talk about the AFC North. I'll go ahead and give Rugg the reins because this is kind of his grounds. This is what he deals
Yep,
with.
I'm chopping at the bit. I'm excited for this. I mean, bottom line with the AFC North, being a fan of a team in the AFC North is something I take pride in. We play rough, tugged football, AFC North style football. And if you're not a fan
Oh
of an AFC
God,
North team, I
I'm
feel
doing this
sorry
shit.
for you. The Baltimore Ravens went 14-2 last season. They had one of the best regular seasons in NFL history. If they just get a little bit better, they revamped their D-line, which after they got embarrassed by Derrick Henry, their secondary is coming back. The MVP of the league is only going to get better. Hollywood Brown's going to break out. Not only do we have big trust himself, Mark Ingram, we have J.K. Dobbins, absolute stud, going to get even better and better. We're going to have a fantastic season. But this is going to be a great division. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm very high on them. I fully believe they're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the AFC. Not only is Ben Roethlisberger coming back, and I think we're going to get 1 to 2 more good years out of him. The Steelers had some problems on the row line after losing Mike Munchak last year with their run game schemes, but I think that's going to improve this year. They've lost Ramon Foster in the interior, but they got Stephon Wisniewski. Last year was the best Steelers defense in a very long time, and their edge defenders with TJ Watt and Bud Dupree looking to replicate what he did last year is going to be very important. The Steelers finally have a secondary that's worth talking about with Minka Fitzpatrick back there, and their habit of playing soft zone coverage and their kind of being willing to be a lot more aggressive is going to be a prevalent thing. So I think we're going to see the best rivalry in football definitely resurface this season with Baltimore-Pittsburgh. Cleveland Browns, at the end of the day, they're the Browns. They have another rookie coach with a team full of talent, including a helmet beater, a guy who proposes to kicking nets, a quarterback who is a terrible leader, but they're full of talent. He can't.
BROWNIES. Brownies,
Wait,
brownies,
did you
brownies.
say IN?
Well, I think
No.
Baker Mayfield did more commercials last year than he had wins,
brownies.
so not off to a good start for him.
And then, of course,
Browns
there's
are gonna
Jesus
take over
Christ,
the division.
Joe Burrow, but he's not ready. His team isn't ready yet. But anyone else have anything to say about it?
Moral of the story here is Rugg is wrong. Browns win. Browns win. Browns win. They turn it around this year. Baker comes out back on top. He took a year off from the commercials.
Back on top.
He's ready to come out. He's coming back.
Yeah, the Browns have literally never been on top.
Back on top. Wait, when was Baker Mayfield
from
on
where?
top? I guess being in Cleveland on top is 7-9, like Baker Mayfield's rookie season.
Yeah.
So they're gonna go 7-9 again. They're gonna get back on top, but by the way you just defined it.
Yes. Well, I mean, they're gonna do better than the Ravens. They'll be better than 7-9.
They're gonna do better than the Ravens.
Joke.
Yes, better than the Ravens.
So what about
if Baker's 8-8, they'll build a statue.
What about the Browns matchup with the Ravens specifically? Do you think they'll do better than the Ravens?
I think someone's gonna tear Lamar's ACL early in the season. Ravens are gonna have no backup, and they're just gonna go to shit. The Ravens are gonna have a shitty season. The Browns are gonna come out on top, And the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger is going to eat a couple too many hamburgers, and he's going to be too fucking fat to play anymore. And so the Browns, BROWNIES, brownies, all the way. Let's go.
I'll say this about the Browns. I'm higher on them going into this year than I was last year. I think a lot of people jumped the gun last year when the middle of their defense wasn't really as stout as it needed to be, and their O-line was terrible. I think they went into this offseason, they repaired both those things, and I think they could make a decent-sized jump. And I'm a firm believer that right now, I don't think anyone in the AFC North is going to be bad this year. I think the Bengals can get a few key wins, get a few nice wins. I think Joe Burrow is a really good quarterback. I think, like I just gave my reasoning for the Browns. Then, of course, you have the Ravens and Steelers. Big Ben's coming back. We know what Big Ben can do. We've seen what he's done for 15 years. We're going to continue to see it. Like you said, Rugg, I think he has another 2-3 good years. And I think Baltimore has nowhere to go but up. I think Lamar is going to keep improving. There's no reason to think he won't. He's one of the best quarterbacks in football right now. And anytime you got one of those guys on your team, you make that playoff run, you make that Super Bowl run. But we just have to wait and see what he can do come playoff time. That's all it's holding back right now.
When it comes to Lamar, it's going to be 0-3 come next year.
But his regular season record is fantastic. And regarding this discussion, it puts him in a good spot.
Means nothing when it comes
but it does
to
for
January.
This discussion, though. We're previewing the division for the regular season.
Well, but when it comes to week 17, and he needs a win to get in because the Brownies have already locked up the number one seed.
Zach, your Browns was atrocious. Let me
the Browns aren't going to do anything next year. Come on.
So Dave's right that the Browns O-line is improved and their interior D-line is improved. They've revamped their defense, their front office. They fully bowed down to the analytics gods, which is the right thing to do, of course. And they had a great draft, bringing in Grant Delpit, Jedrick Wills. They're going to be a threat, but it's going to come down to Baker Mayfield. Odell Beckham's never won anything in his career, and it's because when one of your best players is also one of your most immature, that's not a good precedent to set. But maybe Kevin Stefanski, the young coach who wasn't even the architect of the Vikings offense, as Gary Kubiak was sitting there like a puppet master, orchestrating that offense in Minnesota. Maybe Kevin Stefanski will be the guy to lead the Browns to the promised land, but I'll bet against it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. Nobody's betting on the Browns. The Browns are laughing stock in the NFL.
I gave you the floor, and your argument was Lamar would tear his ACL and Big Ben.
Yes, that's what you're not understanding. Lamar's ACL is already gone. Someone is doing it this year.
Yeah, Chase Young.
Lamar won't be running wild. Yes. I would love Chase Young if that happened. That would be awesome.
That's great for football.
Lamar Jackson goes down for the season.
What a great thing for the NFL. You're right.
Well, it would be a great thing for me and Zach because we.
Why? Your irrelevant Redskins aren't doing shit regardless, whether Lamar tears his ACL or not.
Baltimore because Lamar literally can't win a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. He's 0-2. He's in his second season.
It would be even better if the Ravens go 14-2 again, and they decide that they want to go and just lose the first round.
Yeah, and then they're just going to pay Lamar $40 million a year just to suck and not win playoff games. Sounds like a good future for him.
We're in such a bad spot. We have a quarterback who won the MVP last season. Such a terrible spot to be in. I'm so
one of the teams in your division had the number 1 overall pick, so that's 2 free wins you got last year, and then you still lost to the shitty Browns last year.
Oh no, we lost 2 regular season games. What, man? It's horrible. We fucking lost less games, and your team won last season.
Oh, that's brutal.
Oh wait, no,
there it is.
I just mixed that up. But the Redskins did only win 3 games. So the fact they were that bad that it's even close.
It's all right. We saw the 49ers had the 2nd overall pick to Super Bowl, so Washington's going to do the same this year.
Yeah, but if I'm being serious, I think the Browns are going to get that wild. I think they're going to play well enough to get.
I think we're going to see 3 AFC North playoff teams this season.
Really?
I think that's a great take, Rugg. I think we could realistically see those that top 3 team get in. I don't personally see anything in Cincinnati. I think they got a pretty good quarterback in Joe Burrow, but I don't think that team's good enough to win anything. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're favored in 1, maybe 2 games all season long up to this point. And I just don't see them getting that much better than they were last year.
Yeah, they're not ready yet. I think the important thing with the AFC North is I think the Steelers and Browns are better than every team in the AFC East. I think they're definitely better than every team but the Chiefs in the AFC West. And I think in the AFC South, is anyone really convinced that the Texans, Titans, or even the Colts are significantly better than the Browns and Steelers? I don't think so.
I mean, we've already said we think the Colts are going to be pretty good, but I don't know if
But
I
I
don't know
think
if
the
they're going to be
Browns and
better
Steelers
than
be
the Browns
pretty.
and
I think the
Steelers.
Steelers, like I said, I could see the Steelers, the Ravens winning that division. The Steelers being in second at 12-4, 11-5,
Really,
and getting
that's
like a wild card out of that. I definitely could see that.
I'm just
happening.
not as high. I just don't think Ben Roethlisberger is going to come back the way you think he is. I also, if I'm my
He's been
bold
injured
prediction,
so many times in his career, and he's come back every time. He's relentless.
he's fat. He's fat.
He's not fat
Have you
though.
seen-
That's just a
Oh.
lazy take. He's not fat. His
Oh.
ability to move in the pocket and extend plays. It's haunted me for years as a Ravens fan. You think he's on the ground, he just slivers out of it, and he makes a
Yeah.
big play. And that's not going to change. He's come off injuries. He's been injured 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I don't know. Each injury adds a little more to it, though, and his play style, the way he escapes sacks, is a very physical way. It's just always he's been strong, big, and like how many times can you do that before it does take that toll? And I agree with you, Rug. I do think he has I think he probably has one great year left, and then probably maybe one or two more half decent ones, and then it'll probably be done for him. But
Yeah,
we'll
for
see.
this
We'll see with
season,
Ben Roethlisberger, man.
I'm high on the Steelers.
I'm very interested.
Is anyone else with me that they think Joe Burrow should be sat this year?
No. Why would you
Or
say
am I the only one?
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah, you don't sit the number one
just
overall
because he's not. They're not going to win. He's going to win them. Like he'll probably end up winning them like 3 or 4 games and take him out of a high draft pick position again.
Yeah,
And
there's
meanwhile,
no
he could just sit,
substitute for
learn, and
in-game
absorb.
experience.
Yeah,
though.
you got to develop.
Live reps mean everything, and it's not close. Not close.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
I just don't like. I love. I mean, you see Patrick Mahomes.
The Bengals
you see
actually
Lamar
have a-
Jackson.
Well, Patrick Mahomes is a unique case. They had a team that was winning with Alex Smith, and Patrick Mahomes was also.
Yeah.
We thought he needed some development. Turned out he was a god, but we thought he needed a little development coming out.
Andy Reid offense, but
Who knows? Maybe he did. Maybe he did need that development. Maybe that's why he's part of the reason why he's so great.
It definitely helped him. I mean,
But
yeah.
but yeah, it's gonna be an interesting season. The AFC North. It's definitely be one of the most
Rug
fascinating
kind of touched
divisions.
on. I think the Bengals are better than what people think they are. They got Jonah Williams coming back this year. They got what's his name, Joe Mixon, good running back. AJ Green, if he can come back and play active.
AJ Green.
He's
AJ Green
been injured
is
for 2 years, but he's a
fantastic.
great receiver.
If he's himself, he is as good. And we're gonna get. I might as well segue right into this right now. Our top 5 receivers. Let's do our quick list.
Let's go and get into it.
do it.
Let's start with let's just do how we did last week. Let's kind of let it roll. Let's all say kind of our number ones and then debate them as they go.
Julio
wants to go?
Jones is my number one. Absolute. It's not even a debate. He's been the best receiver in the NFL for 5+ years, in my opinion. Better than even Antonio Brown when he was at the top of his game.
Whoa!
DeAndre Hopkins, my number one. It's not even debate. He's been better than Antonio
Yeah.
Brown for the 5+ years. He's been in the league, not even close.
I'm going with D-Hop as well. Strong
Julio
hands.
Jones
Strongest hands
is
out of
a
any of
little
the top
less durable.
receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's hard because he's my number 2. He's a god. I think Hopkins a little more strong hands. Exactly right what Dave said. Julio's got a little thing. It's actually similar to I saw Matt Wallman break this down on Laviska Shenault when he is about to catch a ball and he kind of in his rear mirror sees someone about to hit him. He drops it. Julio has a little bit of that tendency sometimes, and he's corrected it. It's not a major problem. I'm kind of nitpicking, but D-Hop's hands are so strong. Like Watson would just they're like gloves.
Well,
When you're
I haven't
comparing
seen
number one, you
D-Hop
gotta
lift
pick.
his team to a Super Bowl like Julio did.
After
That's
disagreeing-
not what happened.
After disagreeing with Mark a lot last week with the running back, I think he's spot on right here. I have Julio. If you're going out there to build a wide receiver in Madden right now, you build Julio Jones. Like that's just what it would look like. He's also, not to mention everything else you just added about like him as a receiver, he might be the best blocking receiver in football that I've ever seen. So
Who's faster, D-Hops or Julio?
Julio.
Julio's the physical freak. He's probably one of the most gifted physical athletes.
I mean, you can't go wrong
in
with
the NFL
Julio.
right
He's
now.
mine. I'm sure Dave and
Yeah.
I have him at number 2. I mean, it's not like something you can go wrong with. I think D-Hop's one thing about D-Hop is before Watson, he had horrible quarterback play, and he still found a way to put up numbers. Julio's really good. I mean, he's amazing, but I definitely don't think, like Mark said, he carried the Falcons to a Super Bowl. They had 1 year with Kyle Shanahan where the offense clicked, the running game clicked, the offensive line was better than usual, and Julio was amazing, but he definitely wasn't the only component.
Something else to keep in mind, Julio's also had good number twos. He's also had really good number twos throughout his career, whether that was
Roddy White.
Calvin Ridley,
Roddy White, Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley. Last time I checked, DeAndre Hopkins has Will Fuller for 3 games a season, and then he's getting triple covered the rest.
Yeah, that's a great
no
point.
tight end either. No
so
tight end.
Are we all everyone who doesn't have Julio number 1? Do you guys have D-Hop 2 then, and then we have
I have D-Hop as my number 2.
Okay, D-Hop 2. All right, so let's.
It's an argument.
So we'll
Michael
start
Thomas at 3.
Yep.
Nope, not for me.
At 3.
Not for me.
Michael Thomas at 3.
Who do you have?
I have AJ Green at 3. I think AJ Green's a superstar.
Well, that's just an absurd take because he hasn't even played football in 3 years.
He hasn't played.
So what? When he's
his AFC North bias
at the top of his game, AJ Green
for players who aren't in discussion for retirement. I mean, if you weren't an avid NFL fan, you would think AJ Green retired 5 years ago because that's the last time he was relevant.
I mean, that's just false. 5 years ago. That's
the last time he's ever played a full season.
Obviously, Mark exaggerated a little bit, but he hasn't played, Rugg. How are you going to put him above Michael Thomas?
Because he's going to play this season. He's going to come right back. Because I think he's more talented than Michael Thomas. He's more physical. He has a larger route tree. He's basically DeAndre Hopkins. That's why he's not number 1, because he hasn't played. He put up amazing numbers with Andy Dalton.
I have neither of those guys at 3. I have Mike Evans at 3.
Wow.
Personally. I think Mike Evans is a very, very, very good receiver.
I also have Mike Evans at number 4, right behind Mike Thomas.
He is my number 5.
I have Evans at 4.
Yeah. Jake talked about run blocking with Julio earlier. I'm sure everyone's seen the video of Mike Evans basically choke slamming Terrence Newman on a run block. The dude's a monster. He's a tight end that runs a 4.4. Like, he's a crisp route runner. He sits in zones well. Yeah. And he's played with Jameis
also
Winston
one of the most
career.
Well, that could be a benefit because Jameis Winston just doesn't give a fuck and he just throws that fucker.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mike is my number 5.
Like, people forget how good he made Johnny Manziel look at A&M, and he made Winston look good a lot too. Like, he definitely makes his quarterbacks look a lot better than what they may be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Tom Brady.
So Mike Evans, is that our consensual 3, or
no? That's our
consensual. Would you rather have
3-4? We'll say 3-4.
Okay, so where's everyone else's 4?
Because I have 5th. I got Mike Thomas at 4.
I have Thomas at 4. Michael Thomas at 4.
Okay.
I mean, we're pretty much in better
agreement.
Has
Tyreek Hill up in the top 5?
No.
Tyreek Hill's my 5th.
I think
Tyreek Hill's 5 for me too.
I think he's a little too erratic. I think so. We're in agreement. Odell's not in top 5. I would say Odell and pure talent would be top.
We are not in agreement because Odell is my number 5.
Oh, okay, good.
Based off of what you just said alone.
Oh,
just off pure talent. I mean, it was kind of hard. I do hate OBJ, but he's just so talented when he can actually play, and when you don't see him sniffing coke off hookers in France every 2 weeks. So
it's just hard because
he's so good.
He is. I think he's the most talented receiver in football when he's got his head on his game, but it doesn't happen often.
I have a problem putting Odell even almost inside my top 10 when there's receivers like Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not taking Odell over those two.
Well, yeah,
and they're not even in my top 5.
I was going to say, I had so many people that could have replaced OBJ, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Tyreek Hill. Any of those guys could switch with OBJ easy.
Yeah, I love what Tyreek Hill gives you on a football field. I mean, you get him in space and he's gone. I mean, I think you're going to see that from CeeDee Lamb, which is kind of scary, but
Tyreek Hill is
your entire game plan. You like, if you're a coach and you just run Tyreek Hill across the formation, you could be running a stretch to the left and you run him the other way. The entire defense takes notice like no other receiver in football. He is just such a threat with the ball in his hands that even what he does to affect a game outside of pure numbers, and with the ball in his hand, it's just mind blowing to me.
It's just high percentage that he's probably going to score. If he touches the ball, it doesn't matter who's on the field playing defense or where the offense is at on the field. If he touches the ball, he probably has the highest percentage to score when he touches the ball out of any receiver in football. And it's so dynamic and explosive. Like, as a Cowboys fan, I remember watching the game a few years ago before halftime. Usually teams run the Hail Mary. They didn't run that. Dallas were playing their DBs, their feet were on the goal line. They ran kind of a drag, and they had the 3 receiver trips on the left just run streaks, and Tyreek came behind those guys and he scored from like the 50, like off a drag. And it was unbelievable to me. I'd never seen anything like that. Like players aren't in the NFL, that the physical and athletic disparity shouldn't be that great between players. And Tyreek Hill, he's one of the fastest player we've ever seen in pads. But like along with that, he has that agility and quickness that most fast players don't have. And I feel like that's what makes him so special.
Everyone remembers the old mans that when you had a faster player than the other person, you could kind of like run backwards at an angle for like a split second, and like your player's like speed, but like would like out the defender would take a flatter angle, and then like you could run around him. Like every one of us played Madden and remember stuff like that, right? I've seen Tyreek Hill actually do that on a football field, and like as an actual person. I've never seen anybody else do that in my entire life, and that's why I just can't keep him outside my top 5. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, pure talent. I definitely get the argument. I just don't think he carries enough of a load to be a top 5 receiver for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love him. I love Tyreek Hill. I think he's one of the most.
I love him on the field.
But that being said, let's go ahead and get in our one listener question of the day. But for our one listener question this week, I'm going to let Rug go ahead and read it.
So this question is from Tom, and I'll go ahead and read it. So he says, I really enjoy your podcast. What do you guys think the chance that the COVID-19 virus will come back strong later in the year during the flu season and force some cancellation of NFL games in November and December? Also, will this put more of an urgency on winning games earlier in the season to guarantee a playoff spot?
Well, I think I doubt that there'd be cancellations, because I feel like right now they've basically confirmed there's going to be a season, and they did that knowing that there's probably going to be a spike back up in the fall. So I don't think there's going to be a cancellation just for that pure fact, because everyone knows that there's a very high probability it's going to spike again. So, I don't know. Canceling games, I feel like, is something that won't be happening.
Oh, it's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
Would they ever do something, though, where if there's like a wave in November, midway through the season, where they kind of cut the regular season off early and then skip to the playoffs like 2 months later? Would they ever? I don't think they'd ever do that, but would it be something they would even consider?
I don't think they can. Unique? I think if there was a situation like that, they would remove the 50% fans or whatever they decide to do at the time, and they would just eliminate that and just go straight to playing without fans.
Well, I think everything's...
What if enough players in the league test positive? What if enough players?
We got to be real. Well, you said enough players. Yeah, it depends. It's hard to figure out what.
I mean,
what that would.
What happens if 3 starting QBs test positive? If 3 starting QBs test positive, that's 3 teams that lost their starting QB. That's huge.
Okay, well that happens anyway due to injury or whatever every year. So I mean,
yeah, that's
okay. So you're adding that on top of injuries.
But would you shut down the entire league over that? Because then you're just saying, oh, if a quarterback tests positive, I'll shut down the league. But if a running back, 3 running backs do, I'm not. Yeah. I mean, that's where it kind of.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Rug. But it's unprecedented territory. You really don't know what's going to happen until it happens. Like if a huge spike does happen in the fall, then I honestly think like talking about we're all in college. Like it's going to be a shit show at school if there's a huge spike. Like I think everything will be a shit show if that's the focus of what's going on in the news day to day. Because let's be honest, the news puts a spotlight on the current event. And if that puts pressure on that puts pressure on the NFL. It happened in the NBA early in the season. Like it was a lot less known of what the virus was like, but at the end of the day, they're going to put pressure on the NFL, saying, "Oh, there's a lot of cases happening right now. How are you fully believe that you care?"
If Sped Rudy Gobert didn't literally contaminate everybody with the virus, that we would have finish up the ACC tournament and all the college basketball tourneys that weekend, then they would have shut everything down.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Rug and I are here after the listener questions. The listener questions were supposed to be the end of this of this fucking podcast, or this part, we're supposed to have a fucking interview with Coach Sakari, who brutally just fucked us. I mean, we were doing the interview. He was driving home. We were like, okay, it should work. But he was actually in the mountains in Maryland, and his signal was dog shit. So he's like, yeah, let's just do it when we get home. Next thing you know, dude's like, all right, let's do it now. And then no response when we try to do it. No response. And then he just ghosted Dave like you've never been seen before. And Dave can't even get a response out of one of his former coaches. But that being said, we got some breaking news. And that's honestly why we were back, because today in the last 3 hours, shit kind of happened that we would like to bring to you on this episode. One of those being Dalvin Cook, and I'll let Rugg kind of go over what Dalvin Cook wants and what happened.
Yeah, so Dalvin Cook is going into his 4th year with the Vikings. He is on his rookie deal. He was not taken in the first round, so he's getting paid even less than first-round rookies are getting paid. Guys like Jamal Adams are already complaining about wanting a new contract. But basically, Dalvin, according to Adam Schefter, he's just ready to hold out. He's ready to lock out. He does not want to play under this deal. And it's just kind of the latest example of running backs not feeling that they're valued enough. We've seen it with Melvin Gordon. We've seen this with Zeke. It worked for Zeke. It didn't work for Melvin Gordon. But Dalvin, he's just not – he's a good player, but he hasn't been healthy
He's a
over
fucking
his
idiot.
career.
He's a fucking idiot. Say it how it is. He's a fucking sped.
He is delusional because right now during COVID, how can these guys expect an extension right now during COVID?
It's not even just that. Is he better than Melvin Gordon?
I love Dalvin personally, and I would say he is a little bit, but it totally backfired for Melvin.
I think he's a little bit better. But did he not just watch what happened to Melvin Gordon in the same situation? What the fuck's going through his head?
I don't know.
That's just it's so self-centered. It's no team correlation at all. That's just he's on a team that has a chance to go make the playoffs and probably will. And he's just letting his team down. It's so self-centered. It's a dick fucking move, and he's a fucking moron for it.
And it's even more self-centered right now as you see everyday people just fighting paycheck to paycheck during a tough time like this. And look, I'm usually all for people getting their money, but it's not a great look. For his teammates, it's not a great look. He has not played. He's missed so many games in his career. He has one good season. He thinks he deserves the entire farm. He's a free agent coming up soon, as it is, and he just doesn't even want to play out the last year of his rookie deal. So it's definitely it's a problem for them.
We just did the top 10 running backs, or top 5, and we quickly noticed that the top 10 are really, really good. And then you even get right below it, and there's still really good running backs. Running backs right now are a dime a dozen, and all of them are in one or two system, two or three maybe running backs in that system that are used. And you're not as valuable as you think you are, and you saw it with Melvin Gordon not getting paid. It's that he's not going to get paid. He hasn't been on the field enough, and he's not he's just handling all the load. I don't know who he thinks he is. Adrian Peterson in his prime. He's just not going to get – I don't know what he even wants here.
You saw it with Raheem Mostert. Dude is a good player, but did anyone know who he was? He was a Ravens practice squad player. Gone, cut. Now he's a good player. It's all about scheme. Running back just doesn't matter.
Scheme.
Todd Gurley all of a sudden goes from a superstar to just now he's barely going to be a starter in Atlanta.
Or
then David Johnson.
DeMarco Murray. People forget about DeMarco Murray.
And what's funny about him is he actually was one of the better signings, not because he did overly well, but he just didn't totally fall off a cliff in Philadelphia. He had another good season. So it's time and time again with running backs. And I think Dalvin knows this, and that's why he's so desperate to get his contract as early as possible.
Because if he gets hurt this year, he might be fucked.
He is. But I don't know. How can you ask for an extension right now? Because what is a team? The NFL doesn't know if they're even going to have fans in the stands. So they can't even project their revenues. Their salary cap. What if you saw excuse me, if you sign a guy to an extension that's not market value because the salary cap is going to be impacted by not having fans in the stands this season?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. But moving on, an hour ago, 8:26 p.m. This article was published on ESPN. The college football committee just drafted a 6-week practice plan for schools, stating that players could be back to campus and practicing and begin working with the teams as early as July 6th.
Let's go.
That's crazy. I mean, we're talking schools don't even know if they're opening yet. Schools don't even know what they're doing for their fall semester. My roommate's girlfriend just got told that she has to re-register for classes because they're changing up the whole schedule at JMU.
Wow.
Like, people don't even know when they're going back to school. But yet, here comes college football. Fuck everyone else. We're good to go. July 6th, let's get back on campus like nothing's going on, and let's get to practice. I mean,
it's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
And you know what? I'm all for it. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. There's no way you can't be all for it. It's just a little hypocritical.
Absolutely. I fully acknowledge it's hypocritical, but these schools, they need a semblance. Even though a lot of professors aren't going to want to teach in person, they need a semblance of kind of normalcy, and college football will help do that. But this is a huge step. It's a uniform NCAA rule where they're now allowing everyone to go. So all the schools are going to be able to do it. So it doesn't discriminate where just Southern schools or based on the states. So this is really exciting. I'm really excited about this, and let's get it. We're going to get college football. I mean, especially with the announcement today from the World Health Organization that there's not as much asymptomatic transmission as we originally thought. That's still being totally confirmed, but it's another good sign. It's just things are headed in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, things are definitely heading in the right direction. And I'll let you transition into what you want to talk about with kind of this recent news coming out about Dabo Swinney and stuff at Clemson.
So there's been some rumors. Well, there's two news stories at Clemson. So with Dabo, there's been some rumors that he allegedly used some racial slurs in the locker room. They're out there, a few different sites, a few different articles. It's not been substantiated. I know the USC fans are all over it, which I totally understand. I will say this about Dabo. He's a very religious, old school guy. Take that for what it's worth. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think there's anything that's going to come out of it, but it's always interesting when the rumors swirl, especially at a time like this when many people are past comments like Jake Fromm's are coming to fruition.
Yeah. And you talk about like with the Iowa strength coach right now, right? Iowa strength coach, what's going on with him? He's like, I never said this. And then there's a few people backing him up, and it's just like this stuff in the news about coming out about racial slurs, and it's just obviously it's wrong if they have used them, but it's frightening because someone can make an accusation about someone saying something, and next thing you know, their job's gone, or they're on leave until it's my word against his, and like right now, I mean, you're most likely going to lose that argument.
Yeah, it's the battle of he said, she said versus are you worth the trouble? Yeah. And in Dabo Swinney's case, because of his wild success, if it comes out that he did actually say something, like there are a few of his former players that are alleging, then he's less likely to be fired than another coach because just of his success, just because he's been so incredible. And because of all the revenue he brings into that school, I mean, just as a result of success. So it would take a lot for them to actually let him go. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. Dabo's from what you can tell, Dabo looks like a great guy. If a few things came out, then a few things came out, and he's got to either own it or refute it, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I mean, that's a great point because even if he did say something offensive in his past, think about all the great things he's done for so many people.
Yeah.
So it's very hard when you're going to take one thing somebody said and then use it to just eviscerate them. This idea that you can't make a mistake and you can't repent for it is a bit of a concerning trend you're seeing not only in sports but in all professions right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for this podcast. We are sorry we weren't able to get the interview in, but we are happy that we were able to get this kind of emergency press report out with stuff that just happened. Rugg and I really wanted to do it just so we could kind of give you what just went on. And I mean, it would have been a week before we could have touched on it. So we thought it would be necessary to get it out there, but please go ahead and drop your listener questions to the email in the description below. And we want to thank you for tuning in this week and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Peace.